We begin this morning with what should have been a big win for all Americans. Just hours ago at midnight, the bipartisan housing affordability bill became law. This landmark bill is expected to make it easier and more affordable for all of us to buy a home, which hits at a critical issue ahead of the midterm elections. This is a rare accomplishment from this Congress that should have come with a lot of fanfare. Everybody should be real excited. But if you remember, there was going to be a big bill signing ceremony 17 days ago after it first passed Congress, but it was abruptly canceled hours before the event. That's because Donald Trump was so concerned about getting his voter suppression law bill, the Save America Act, passed, that he refused to sign his name on the bill. And yesterday, even after the pleas from members of his own party, Trump continued his tantrum and wouldn't sign it. But since he also didn't veto the bill, it quietly became law at midnight. There's some civics for you. It's all part of his laser focus on trying to reshape and exert control over the federal elections, rather than try to win it on the issues, to the extent that he wouldn't highlight a bill that might actually help Republicans in November. I've talked to them. They wanted it. Just this week, Trump fired the last 3 members of the Bipartisan Election Assistance Commission. You've never heard of it because that's the point. They're supposed to be in the background. This is an agency whose function is to help state officials nationwide with tasks like certifying voting systems and maintaining the National Mail Voter Registration Form. Now there is no one left at this point to carry out those duties. Then there are the federal officials requiring states to change the way they conduct elections or risk losing tens of millions of dollars of federal grants preventing terrorism, according to the New York Times. And there is the Justice Department threatening top election officials in all 50 states with criminal prosecution if non-citizens cast ballots that are counted in elections, something that, as we all know, is incredibly rare. Joining us now at the table, Maria Teresa Kumar, President and CEO of Voto Latino, and Christy Greenberg, MS Now legal analyst, former federal prosecutor, and host of Courtside with Christy Greenberg on YouTube. Thank you both for joining us. I read a lot there, but I think for me, this commission that, frankly, most of us have probably never thought about or even heard of before this week. The president gutting that after the Supreme Court gave him the ability to do so, get rid of folks from independent commissions. I want to read from what the White House said about him firing them. The president and head of the executive branch reserves the right to remove individuals that may not be totally aligned with the important task of securing America's elections and ensuring every legal vote is counted, the White House official said. The Slaughter decision gives the president precedence to do so. Help me understand, how does gutting this commission actually help make America's elections more secure when this was literally their job?
So actually, I'm very familiar with the Election Assistance Commission because we work with them oftentimes at the local level.
Yeah.
Basically, what they do is they provide assistance in a nonpartisan way to every single state and local election official. So they basically make sure that everybody understands the rules, making sure that they've been trained up, making sure that there's basically turning down the temperature, especially in this moment of increased volatility. And I think it's really important for the American people to understand is that it is a fully bipartisan commission. They are Democrats and Republicans. In this case, he also basically showed the exit to the Republican, but in a nicer way. And I think that everything, when you look at the totality of what is happening in this moment, that he is throwing a tantrum for the SAVE Act, which is trying to prevent disproportionately women and people of color from voting. When you look at what he's weaponizing the DOJ around saying, actually, I want you to go to all 50 states and look at their voter verification. It means that he is not on the road to winning the midterms. That should be the headline. And most politicians, when they're not on the road to winning, they change their tactics, like you so eloquently said. You actually say, okay, what do the people need? They need housing. That's a no-brainer. Let me sign that on. They need to make sure that they need to have access to education. There's a whole roster of things.
Let's deal with the economy, gas prices.
Right, and there's a whole roster of things that he would have to force the hand of the Democrats to come in and sign because they need it too. And instead what he's doing is like, I think I'm going to have a landslide against me, so let me actually alter the rules. And one of the things that we're working on right now as a coalition in voter registration is making sure that people regardless if you're a Republican or Democrat, go check your voter registration form. Make sure that you have a plan to vote. And the only way we change the direction of the Republicans and Democrats to find a spine in this moment is to flood the voting booth. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, is what he's afraid of. But that's actually what our charge should be. Mm.
Christy, does the Constitution, at the end of the day, protect these changes that Trump is now trying to force because Congress doesn't want to implement the SAVE Act to now make these changes via the Election Assistance Committee? Does the Constitution actually provide a barrier to that happening? Or is Trump actually going to be successful here by attacking these independent agencies and making these changes via executive power?
Yeah, so the Election Assistance Commission is created by Congress, by statute. So Donald Trump has the ability to appoint those commissioners. He has the ability to fire those commissioners for any reason he wants. He could say, hey, I want to rig the election. I don't want this commission to be in place. I want to fire the commissioners. And that could be a valid reason based on what the Supreme Court has recently found in its Slaughter decision. But it can't just abolish the commission. Again, Congress created it. So you can appoint people, you can fire them, but you can't just say there's not going to be a commission at all. Like it's created by Congress. So I do think that there is room here for a lawsuit for secretaries of state in various states to say, hey, we're harmed by this. This commission is set up, it's bipartisan, and it's there to help us make sure there's not chaos on Election Day, and that we're set up, that our voter equipment is working the way it should, that our voting systems are certified. And so I think there is a real harm to these states and to the secretaries of states in particular who are working to administer these elections fairly to say, like, yeah, we're going to sue you. We're not going to let you do this.
I'm just looking at, there's another story here, election-related. The president's, this is correct, the president's Department of Justice, because that's what it is sending election monitors to 6 states, Chrissy: Arizona, Michigan, Massachusetts, Minnesota, New Hampshire, and Virginia. Who are these people, and why aren't these people saying, you know what, I'm not going to do it? I'm not going to be a part of this? Or am I just, I mean, I've never seen The West Wing, but it's a very West Wing type question.
Yeah, I mean, look.
Stand up to the man.
Right.
I think that's a broader issue at DOJ. Yeah. You've got a lot of people. There are a lot of good people still at DOJ who are keeping their head down and hoping they're not asked to do something that conflicts with their ethics. And so in this situation, Election Monitor, I think, is like, well, what are you actually there to do? What are you monitoring? It seems like what they're there to do is really to try to intimidate the election officials. And if that's what you're charged with doing, yes, you should absolutely stand up. If you're just there to stand 6 feet away and look, maybe you don't die on that hill. But I think the broader issue is they're not there to really just monitor all of this. Looking back at DOJ saying we're going to impose criminal penalties if any non-citizens are on the voter rolls. Well, what's the crime? And I mean, again, like, what are you looking at? Are you saying that people are intentionally doing this, that they know and intentionally are putting non-citizens on the voter rolls? And if that's the case, where's your evidence of that? You've been there for 18 months. Bring your case. Charge it.
Yeah, well,
we haven't done that.